chance to speak before or anything. So,
Yeah. Okay.
but
So Ding, I'm Bill Graham, and Joan Kerr is with us here today, and we declare this meeting of the SIFA Pilot Planning Group to be open. And we're going to try to keep this meeting to a reasonable time frame of 1 hour. And It's a very important meeting because when we set the time to say, let's try to meet on Mondays because people were having difficulty, especially with later in the day in some parts of the world. This is the first meeting we're having at this time, and we want to establish this. But one of the things is because this is the first really solid meeting is what we're going to try to do today is set the stage. SIFA plan, we've talked about so much over such a long period of time. And now we're saying we want to do something concrete. We want to be able to have a pilot project that we can use as a proof of concept to be able to show people that certain things are doable. But to do that, we have to decide what are the features that are going to be part of this pilot. And this is crucial because otherwise we just keep talking and talking and talking, and we're not able to actually build anything and get anything on the ground. So
mhm.
our purpose for today's meeting is to end up with a feature list of the features we hope to include in the pilot. Now, that doesn't mean that's going to be the final list because some of those items might require further research to see are they feasible to do in a pilot. And some people might put in an appeal for something they felt was very important that was not included, and we will have to resolve those. But the goal is that we want to do that very quickly because we can't be building something if the specifications are constantly changing.
So Bill, I just want to clarify.
Yes.
When I ask questions, I because I don't work on something unless it's really clear what the goal is and what the end product is. I'm just very fussy that way. Um, is this group, the you call it the pilot project group, um, is this group to come up with a plan that include components, or is it to actually do the pilot?
No, I think here there's stages. What we talked about
Okay,
in the last formal meeting
right.
that we had, we need a plan to develop the plan, if you
Yes.
would.
Okay,
Um,
perfect. So
so
that's why I'm here.
so the first stage is to agree what it is we're trying to build as a pilot. The
Hmm.
second stage is to work on the specs, and I'm not saying this is a meeting to come up with the specs after we decide what we want included. It's almost like we're saying, hey, we want to build a house. Now we need to get the blueprints developed. And Developing the blueprints might take several meetings as we go from sort of the napkin sketches down to very concrete develop specs that can be built on. And then the third phase is to figure out, okay, how are we going to build it? How are we going to actually implement a pilot? So, if you would,
Okay.
right now, what we're talking about is what is this animal going to look like that we're hoping that we can build. The second phase, which will probably stretch over several weeks, will be to work out the detailed specifications of how it would actually work in detail and what are the actual operating components that are going to be necessary to be actually able to implement it. And then third will be to have a plan for actually developing the components and then actually putting them into operation on the ground for a pilot. And along the way, we have to be very clear, what's this pilot supposed to accomplish? I mean, we can
Yeah.
get something out there that's going to work and run, but if everybody says, "Who cares?" We already knew you could do that. That wasn't an issue. It's going to be very important that we define what the goal is of the pilot in general, and how we're going to measure the success or failure of that. So that that at the end we've got something that can go to the next phase to say how do we take a pilot, and it could be multiple pilots because we have many of these in different parts of the world. But how do we take the results of all that and then move it forward? Because we're not just academians that are trying to come and write some theoretical paper or what have you. We're trying to implement something that's going to make a difference in the world. And so our plan has to include how do we get to that end result? How do we get to that result of making a difference in the world? Is that
Mhm.
do we pretty much all agree on that?
Yes. Yes, I do. I let other people answer for themselves. Um,
Okay, but Joan, you said something here just before we started the meeting I think was very important, and that is we've got to make sure that the people who are getting involved in these steps that we're going through now to develop the specifications and develop the plans for developing an implementation, that this is a constant team. We can't be having to re-explain every week what the whole project is all about.
yeah,
So the idea is that we've got a solid committee of people who are committed to making a difference.
yeah,
Now, not everybody is going to be on this particular call, and so we are able to operate a little asynchronous, and people will be able to see the recording. But we've got to, whether people are putting their input in asynchronously or via the meetings, we've got to have a static group or a fairly static group of team members here who are working to make this pilot happen on the ground, and we've all got to be in agreement of what we're doing. So, Joan, do you want to explain your thoughts on that?
yeah, sure. Oh, I am on mute. What do you know? Uh, one of the first things, first of all, we should set the timeline. And I usually start when I'm planning anything. I start with what is it that I want to accomplish, so that I know that when I get there, I have accomplished it, right? Of course, you have to have adjustments and things like that. But the very first thing that whenever you're having any kind of task force or committees or anything like that is to establish the committee and committee members who are working with you. Now, other people can join, but we're not going to spend the time educating them all the time. They have to play catch up. They can have input. We can design it so that we have these committee meetings, and then maybe once every 6 weeks or something, we have a broader meeting where other people can come and see something that we don't see. But we need to establish who the committee members are and that they're committed to it. And we need to have those names. And maybe I'm going to suggest roll call, something like that. Because I mean, I've done this a lot and some people resist these sorts of things, but I mean, we have a very short timeline and we should agree on what that timeline is and what it is, the goal is, and then start to plan. That's usually how I approach. I don't know if everybody likes that, but if you reach your goal, how do you know if you haven't established them at the beginning? So that's my philosophy.
So basically having a committed team,
Yeah,
we have to feel we're a team. We have
that's
to
right.
feel that we've got a goal that we're working to reach, and so that we're probably going to need to spread out some of the tasks along the way. Uh,
Right.
and so we will have some subcommittee groups, I'm sure, that will pursue different aspects of this, especially as we start getting down to talking about locations for the pilot,
Right.
but also for the the functionalities. But the one thing that's very, very important is we can't build different solutions for everybody. We're here to come up with a pilot, so we got to all agree that here's the features that are very important. Uh, what I'd like to suggest, because as I mentioned, we're going to try to keep this to just 1 hour. I sent out here a survey,
Mhm.
and some of you may have wondered, what on earth are those questions about? But the SIFA plan, which is really was used to be called the World Marshall Plan, that was established or conceived over 30 years ago by Dutch artist and philosopher Peter Kooistra. That plan had a whole lot of things. He wanted to accomplish a lot of changes. He wanted to change literally the way people think. He wanted to change societal behaviors, if you would. He wanted to have a more inclusive society. He wanted to have a more inclusive economy. He wanted to have more equality in the world. So he had a whole bunch of goals that he had there, and he devised different components of his thoughts that bring those different ideas to fruit. But I mean that it calls for a very complicated solution in the end. It calls for establishing a United Nations bank, a United Nations currency, basically the equivalent of a central bank of a country, but for the world. That would monitor a currency, establish its own currency, and monitor it and keep its value being the same by tweaking things constantly. And he envisioned a whole new process. Well, not necessarily new, but new relative to the way most of the world currently works. A new way of governance. He says democracy is not any good because democracy is the dictatorship of the majority. So it's not equally fair to everybody. And he had problems with almost every form. He had problems with some companies and people being more powerful than other people. And so he wanted to change the way we make decisions in the world to make sure everybody was included in the decision making and nobody was steamrolling over other people. So he had built in a component to deal with that. He wanted to deal with the issues of inequality, economic inequality, and so he built in provisions to deal with those things. So we have a lot of these different provisions. So in the survey, I wanted to make sure that we have a common understanding of what these different provisions that were part of that original plan of what we had been calling the SIFA plan in the meantime. And Lysinka, although she's not on the call right now, she was saying, hey, if we don't do it all the way the Peter Kooistra conceived it, but it's really not the SIFA plan. And so we agree we probably could come up with a better name, and maybe we should do that along the way here pretty soon.
I agree. I think that we need to look at not leave the concepts behind, because I think we're all dedicated to an inclusive society
Right.
and equality. So I have no issues with that. And obviously that's why I want to do it, is because I want to see that
Yeah.
happen. Um, but I personally don't want to work on something that is supplementary income. I think what the world is doing is looking at their situation where women are working from home and doing their crafting and stuff, and it becomes their income, not supplementary. So that's why I have a problem with the
Yeah.
name. I do not have a problem with the concepts.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think one of the things we'll talk about here shortly is looking at the name. But the key thing is, regardless of what we call it,
Right.
we can call it Project A.
Yeah.
But the key thing is that we have to have a common understanding of what it all includes.
Yeah.
And we have to look at this from two perspectives. One perspective is what was the original concept of Peter Kooistra in
Yeah.
that plan. And then from that, we've got to understand, okay, what of those things are implementable in a pilot? Because obviously Peter Kooistra was talking about changing the whole world, having a world central bank, having a world economy, not a national economy, not so forth, but one that doesn't that does not ignore local needs, but that operates on a global scale to create more equality across the entire globe. So the survey that I sent out, and let me just go through here a little bit, a couple of points on this, because I think one of the things that I think is very impressive, we've had 18 responses to this, and I'm just going to jump down here to,
I did respond to it, by the way.
pardon?
I did respond to it, by the
Yes,
way.
yes, I saw that. Well, here's the thing that's very interesting. If we take a look at the countries that we've got. How many countries? Benin, Ivory Coast, Guinea, Uganda, Kenya, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Togo. Um, can I get this thing to go to the side? Altogether, I think here that the responses, these 18 responses, come from about 15 countries.
Wow.
So I think this is very impressive and very valuable for us to realize that we are trying to get perspectives from different parts of the world, from different cultures,
Hmm.
and bring people together from different thoughts. Okay, so okay, unfortunately, how come I can't see this? I think I have to switch over to the questions for a second so that I can go here. Um, and if you can see here, and I apologize if the font is small, but the SIFA plan, as it was originally conceived, I think called for five main things. One was a special, an extra economy, an alternative economy, if you would, that would include a special digital marketplace that would be primarily for products that are sustainable and not harmful to anybody. The second was a sociocratic-based decision-making process, which takes everybody's thoughts into consideration and does not go against anybody. Basically, it's intended to be truly inclusive. Then it included the aspect of a special global currency that would be able to be used exclusively in that special digital marketplace, and then a self-funding supplementary income so that everybody would be able to participate in this special additional economy, and then a bureaucratic network to be able to advise and assist everybody around the world in participating both in that economy, this sustainable extra economy, but also in the decision-making process. So those were the five main points there in the SIFA plan that we included in the survey. And so then the question was asked, to what degree do these 5 points describe the SIFA plan accurately and completely? And we see that out of the 19 responses, that the majority, 9, said, yeah, that's complete. 8 indicated, well, not quite, but in almost complete and accurate. But they still had some point there, and 2 a little less. But most people were on the point that pretty much includes what's going on here. And then we had a position where people could put in thoughts as to what were the points that were missing, that we really needed. Did we miss anything in those 5 points, or were they inaccurate? And I won't go through the plans. We need time to review the comments here, and then we'll come out with something on that. But what was very important, I thought, on this, I had spent quite a bit of time with artificial intelligence, analyzing Kooistra's book and analyzing several papers that had been written about the plan. And one of the things that came out of that is, yeah, there's these different aspects. There's the governance, the aspect of changing the way governance works. And Kooistra wasn't only concerned about the governance of this marketplace. He was really seeing this as a stepping stone to changing the way of how we govern everything in the world, how all governments work, and how all decisions are made by at all levels of society, up and down. So, and of course, in his economy, he was saying, yeah, this is where we start, but that wasn't where he was envisioning ending. His goal was that eventually more and more and more would migrate into this economy that is only going to be for sustainable goods and goods and services that are not harmful to anybody. So, but when we take a look at these and we ask the question, well, are they all dependent on each other? Can you have a marketplace, for example, without having that change of the governance? Can you have a marketplace without a special currency? Can you have a decision-making process without a special currency, and so forth and so on? Now, it's interesting. This first question asked, to what degree do you agree that sustainable products and services could be designated without that special sociocratic decision-making bureaucracy that would involve literally everybody in the world being part of the decision-making process? That means, I used to live in Switzerland, and Switzerland is the vote on everything. So if there was somebody wanted to trim a tree on a house 2 streets over, you would get a thing in your mailbox saying you had to vote whether or not they should be allowed to trim their tree. And every day I was getting something to vote on something. And as a result, the participation level in voting was almost zero because people were just overwhelmed with that. But so the question is, what's very important on this series of questions, because you can see the answers run the gamut. Some people said that, yes, they agree that you could designate sustainable products and services without having to have that bureaucracy that includes, 6, 7 billion people in the world deciding. And but some people felt, no, this is very important that you can't have designate sustainable products and services without that participation. So I think one thing that's very important to understand is this question is not about whether it's desirable, it's about whether it's possible. And so the question is here, you could have some kind of a decision-making board, a judge, a Supreme Court of sustainability decisions that they make the decision and designate, hey, these are the products that are sustainable and not sustainable. And would it be possible to do that? I think yes. But it was important to bring the question out so that we understand that when we're looking at things, sometimes we have to look, is it doable, as separate from, is it desirable? So that was the thought that we were trying to accomplish here, is to get the thinking out about what is possible. Are these things dependent? So perhaps here, let's just briefly talk, not long, because we've only got a little more than a half hour to go. Very quickly, does anybody want to comment on this idea? That we're asking these questions to understand what is feasible and doable versus what's desirable. And second, specifically with this question, that no, we need to have that sociocratic decision-making bureaucracy in order to be able to have a valid list of products and services that are considered sustainable and should be allowed to be in the special digital marketplace. Comments, please. Just unmute yourself if you want to add comments here.
Hi, Stephanie Schuler, Toronto, Canada. I think it's really important what you just said, because from my involvement with Maui Aloha Project, the Global Eco Village Initiative, I've looked at I spent a lifetime looking at alternative models of community all over the world, and many who have marketplaces, many who have different currencies and whatnot. And I think it's really important here, now that we're talking on a macro level, like ideally, I've in sociology very much. How much have I seen it actually happening? I do know that it is the successful way that these eco villages globally run their communities and have basically basic income for all in the community, whether you're doing a work trade or earning income in any way, all kinds of paradigms. I think your question and your point about what we believe in, what we would really like to see, and whether it would work en masse globally is a very important point, because we've never seen it, but it's a really important point. I would love to see sociocracy. But I know it takes so long. It takes so long to make decisions. And maybe having a group of experts, logically it is faster and more effective.
Steph, if I could just, because of the shortness of time, second half, the second set of questions are going to be more into the desirability of the different features, if you would. Here, this part of the survey is more just, is it feasible? Could it be possible that a decision-making body, some kind of a body, designates what is sustainable or not sustainable? And then, because the question really comes is there any enforcement behind that? You could almost have some body that's like the good housekeeping seal of approval, and they say, oh, these are the ones that if it's on the list, that some body, and there might even be competing bodies to say, we're the best body to decide or to come up with the list of what's sustainable and not. Just like we have for so many things, even if you go to test competency in high schools in the United States, we've got the SATs and we got the ACTs, and they're both sort of doing the same thing. But as I say, the idea here was, is it doable? We'll come to that question, how desirable the different features are in just a few minutes. Any other thoughts here on this this question here of understanding the difference between doability and desirability, and or question or comments about that, whether or not it's possible to designate the products and services that are sustainable separate from the having a complex decision-making process?
So it's Joan here. In principle, I agree with it, but in reality, I don't. And I think that people are sick and tired of bureaucracy and sick and tired of long-winded processes. So this is just my opinion of, obviously I think it's valid, but I don't understand why we have to go through this group of the local thing, and then the local thing approve it. What timeline is that? Then goes to a regional group, and what timeline is that? And then go to our group, and that's timeline is that. Like by the time I'm talking about reality, right? By the time it gets to the point where someone and some entity and some this, and then they go back and you have to answer the question. I've gone through this many times with many organizations, and it all sounds good and it all sounds fair and it all sounds transparent. But in reality, people become frustrated. And the trend right now is like people are just sick and tired of this kind of thing. So I'm an entrepreneur, first of all, so I hate bureaucracy. So I just want to say that. But we have to offer people lightness, L-I-G-H-T, lightness of participation, so that they're happy to participate and understand that it's their actions that matters. So, for example, yes, of course, we have to define what we mean by sustainable products and services and have a series of questions for those people. And it gets reviewed, and also I take courses where they say taking your courses and it's an honor code, and you're signing that honor code. So that means that somebody cannot take that test for you, right? Because I think that happens, or something. It must be something obviously happens. I don't know why somebody else writes their exams, but anyway, it's an honor code, and it leads you to feel honorable, number one, and the people who are going to be. I guess what I'm saying, Bill, is that what I'd like to see in the plan is a light, inviting plan.
Leanness, right?
Lean. Okay, lean. Yes. Well, lean, it means that it's, you cut off the fat, but just that people feel lightness. What I mean is it includes the lean, but that people feel encouraged, that there's language. It's not just that the fat is cut off, but that there's language that is inviting and processes that is inviting. That's what I'm trying to say. And that people need to earn money right away. They don't want to wait for processes to happen.
So if I'm the basic thing I think we're saying here right now is that having a definition, a defined list of approved list of sustainable products and services is not dependent upon having a big decision-making bureaucracy.
Number one. And number two is we have to be careful about how we use the word defined list. So instead of defining what the product is defining what it involves. Like, what were the components of your product and service? Like, did you go cut a tree that was 100 years old to make your cabinet? That's not sustainable, right? Do you know what I'm saying? So just and some environmental and social and economic questions. Do you understand what I'm getting at?
Absolutely valid. But this question at this stage, we're not asking how we come to the list. Right. We're just saying it does not require the whole world to decide whether a certain salt shaker should be allowed to be sold in another part of the world.
And that question leads to what would be different than what everybody else is doing, because that's what they're doing.
Right. Okay. So the bottom line is there's not a dependency there. Then the next question we asked was to what degree that a special digital marketplace could be established without a special currency. And again, we see here that we have a lot of people that say, no, you can't establish a digital marketplace without a special currency. But the reality is there's digital marketplaces all over the world that don't require a special currency. So again, I think the question, and this is maybe my fault for not being clearer going in to say it's about doability and not about desirability. When we look, there's very well that we could have a digital marketplace that only has sustainable products and services, but that everybody is invited to go and use their local currencies to buy products. We just make it an equivalent of eBay, Etsy, Amazon, whatever. But it's restricted to those kinds of products. So I think, again, unless somebody has an objection to it, that we have to say, yeah, we could create a digital marketplace. We could use an existing one out there even. We don't have to have a special currency for that digital marketplace to be able to function. Oh, does anybody have any objections to that thought?
Yes, yes. We need to, first of all, hi guys, this is Yvonne Berry. I think everybody needs to put themselves on mute, if that's possible, because we have some background noise. And then if anybody speaks, they could just unmute themselves. That would be great. Okay. So I'd like to speak after Dr. Mohammed Metwali.
Yes, thank you. Mohammed from Egypt. Thank you for this information about survey. There is already a digital market already with special currency already exist from 2018 work in ecosystem in digital market in a global market for services and goods already from Stanford University, and I think ITU in United Nations is a partner from this project already.
Can you please put it in the chat what it's called, if you don't mind?
Absolutely. That would
So we could just take a quick look at it.
Yes, that would be great, because I think we would like to go and pull in some further information on that for one of our future meetings here.
Yes, it's called BI Network. BI Network. It's a global blockchain with Web3 apps in a global market and a special currency called a BI coin, digital currency, sustainable and environmental friendly mining, doesn't consume energy, and using smartphones. They are present in more than 200 countries in the world.
Yes,
around the world.
Yes, Dr. Mohammed, if I could just, I'm a little concerned about our time here and the purpose. I think what you're saying is so valuable, but it's not really what we were trying to get through working through this list. Right now, we're just trying to come to an agreement among all the participants here that you don't have to, not every single component that was ever mentioned in the SIFA plan has to be implemented like that for other parts of it to be able to work. So we're just trying to make sure that, as you see here on the responses that we got, that there's a feeling out there that on the part of a lot of people that you can't have one part without another part. So for right now, what we're just trying to do is go through and have that understanding that there's not that kind of a doability dependency on these items there. So does that?
But Bill, is it possible that Mohammed, can you please type in the proper name of the
yes,
of the platform,
please.
because yeah, the proper name and the currency, and
Yep.
I mean, we'll figure it out. And if I may just say that, so we could see where the coalition, the coalition is. The idea here is if that's a private business or not. This particular project is around supporting governments in helping the individuals in their society, entrepreneurs and contributors.
Yeah.
In order to get into this other platform, you'll probably need money. And you'll probably need to buy the currency. So we need to just take a quick look at it. And I'm sure there are a lot of good synergies. And maybe there's even a collaboration with this organization that we could start off on this supplementary income that will help governments. We're here to be a support to governments, not make money, to help economies, help individuals to become not takers of society, but contributors of society. Yeah. And that and free up people to become either consumers or entrepreneurs without any cost. Yes. We're trying to avoid. This project will eliminate microfinancing and interest rates and all these different things. So but your platform is brilliant, and we would love to take a look at it and then incorporate or partner.
Absolutely, and especially given here that the names like Stanford and ITU, that these are somehow affiliated with this, I think is valuable. So yes, please put that information in the chat. We will do some searches and try to include that as a presentation. We'll probably do an invitation actually for anybody that's aware of platform. Once we have our list of features that we're looking for, to be able to go out and say, okay, who has examples that they are aware of, so that we can have a sort of an inventory of possibilities that could jumpstart what we're trying to do. Okay, Yvonne, did you want to add something else on this particular point here about whether this idea between doable and desirable, or in particular to whether or not you can have a digital marketplace without a special currency?
I don't think, I think in this scenario, it's because it's self-financing. The currency is just made up inside of this enclosed marketplace. And being an enclosed marketplace, it becomes similar to almost like a barter system. We just give people a certain amount of currency and then they could exchange. So there's no need for the complexities of creating currencies that need to be exchanged or other.
Okay. Yes. So basically the idea is that there's not a compelling dependency that you can't do one without the other. Then the next question was to what degree.
And
Yes.
well, I wanted to just echo what Joan had said as well, is that we discussed this again many times before, is that there are qualifying questions in order to list your product and service, and they're the only type of the overview, let's say call it arbitration community, will be developed when there is misunderstanding or discourse of understanding of what somebody says this is really great, and then there's an issue with it.
Right.
Then there could be that level of clarification.
Okay. I think what you just said is very important, because we're talking the world is huge. It's huge. There's more than 8 billion of us on this planet, and we're in different cultures and different geographies, and so many different aspects play a role. And to try to say we are going to touch every little thing that's happening along the world is not feasible. So to be able to say we need to have a process of management by exception, of saying, okay, people have to answer the questionnaire and so forth, and we assume they're honest and so forth, and then if somebody sees an issue and raises an issue, then we can look into it, but we don't have to go and say, no, everybody who says, I have a salt shaker I want to sell, that somebody has to go and investigate that beforehand. So let me go on, because again, time is running out on us. To what degree do you agree that a special currency could be used in traditional marketplaces, similar to just creating a debit card or creating a cryptocurrency? To existing marketplaces could very well do that. You could even go and say, okay, here is a special kind of a debit card or cryptocurrency tool, but it's only valid if a product is on the list of somewhere there's an approved list. So any reseller who's got in a marketplace, that when you come in and say, okay, I want to buy this product, and you say, I'm going to use this form of payment, it validates all of the products that are in your cart at that point are on the approved list. And if it is, then your purchase can go through. And if it's not, it can't. So it's the question again here, whether or not it's doable or it's desirable. And I'm not saying anything about desirability here. We're only talking about, could it be physically doable? Yes, Yvonne.
I think we had discussed this as well in the past. I think maintaining this as an enclosed marketplace where there's an exchange of goods and services, and and if anything is like somebody buys 2 bicycles and through the marketplace, they could go and bring it to their community and sell it wherever they want to. We keep this very simple, and in the future, obviously that there could, in the future, once this is developed and all of the issues are worked out, of course, there could be a potential partnership for people to be selling outside of this community, but keeping it really, really simple, like 1, 2, 3. We just keep it as an enclosed marketplace. You buy and sell. If you have too many points, because at the end of the year, your points expire. So with that being said,
but Yvonne, just excuse me a minute. I was trying to not go and say here, okay, how these things are working, but just whether the idea of a I jumped ahead on this. To what degree that a currency could be used in traditional marketplaces. In other words, that we're talking about, is it doable? Is it feasible? And there are examples out there where it's being done. So that's feasible, because we're not talking about the SIFA plan, not saying that it's not saying, oh, a special marketplace that works like this. We're just saying any digital marketplace out there could a special currency be used in some environment. And we know there are new credit cards and new debit cards and new cryptocurrencies coming available continually that do get plugged into existing digital marketplaces. So that was
we
all.
understand that, but again, so let's just, okay, I'm going to vote on this, and anybody else would like to say anything, it's too early. It's something to be considered later on. But if we're going to have like a barter type of system where it's enclosed, there's no other.
But again, Yvonne, it's not a question. We're not asking about desirability. We're just asking if it's physically doable. It's physically doable. So right now, if I said to you, is it physically doable for somebody to pick up a knife and murder their neighbor? The answer is yes. So that's the kind of question we're asking. We're asking, can somebody murder their neighbor? I
think we have to look at the economic side of things. Okay, so if you have an enclosed marketplace where there isn't any where you
but
just
we're not saying that. This question is not asking that. This question is not.
Yes, one day in the future you could be able to trade outside.
No, again, you're looking at our system. This is not asking about our system. This is asking about any system anywhere in the world. Could it work? Not about our system. We're going to come to that. But that's why I've got to get through these questions so we can.
Okay, so Bitcoin, yes. So nowadays, so today in our present day, Bitcoin has become an acceptable form of currency, right. And you can, if you own Bitcoin, you could actually on your Apple Pay.
Exactly, Bitcoin. Exactly. That's all I was asking at this point. And we're coming to the end of these questions here. To what degree?
Did anybody else have anything to say? I'm sorry, I didn't want to take over.
Anyone else want to add a point to that, or we can ask the same question here to the next question? Because I think all these questions take us in the same direction. The only reason they're in this survey is so that we can realize that a lot of the dependencies that where we've talked about, well, we have to have this A, and we can't do A without B. And the question really gets down to why. And we're talking about a pilot because we might not be able to do A. So we don't want to be sitting there and saying, well, we can't do anything because we can't do it all. So one of the next question is, to what degree do you agree that a supplementary income program could be established without a special currency or a special marketplace? And the thing that's very interesting is, if you notice, almost nobody agreed with that. But there's universal basic income projects have been done all around the world, and they're almost always done with national currencies. So the idea here is the proof is out there everywhere that yes, you can have a supplementary income program that established without making a special currency and without having a special marketplace. That's all we're trying to do, is we're trying to get the understanding that these things are not coupled. They're not saying, yeah, no, you can't have a supplementary income unless you make a special currency for it. That's just is not the case. And the same thing here. Do you whether or not you agree that a sociocratic decision-making bureaucracy could be established without a special digital marketplace or a special currency? And again, most people said, no, you can't have a sociocratic decision-making bureaucracy without having that special market. This is because we are tying our thinking to the SIFA plan and what Kooistra was writing. But when we're looking at a pilot and we're saying, what can we do or not do? We have to really say, you mean it's not physically possible? But we have sociocratic decision-making bureaucracies out there already. Was it the B'nai B'rith group out there? They do that. There's other groups that do that out there. So you can't say it's not possible to have a sociocratic decision-making process without having a special digital marketplace or special currency. And the reason I say this is we are going to move in now to the question of what's desirable, that there are some of you who have said, the heck with the economy thing. No, the most important thing is that we change the way people govern themselves. And so the sociocratic decision-making process is the core of what we're trying to accomplish here. Therefore, hey, if we can do that, we can maybe skip doing the idea of a marketplace and the economy and the supplementary income, and just focus on getting and changing the way governance works around the world. So there are some of you, maybe on this call, but in the broader sense, that are saying that's the primary purpose of the SIFA plan, not the economy part. And so this is why it's so important that we go and say, yeah, okay, yeah, we realize you could create a sociocratic decision-making process independent of having anything to do with the economy or not. So that's all we were trying to get with these, is the recognition that these 5 pieces out there, for the most part, could be each implemented on their own. They do not, there's no compelling reason to say you cannot define products as sustainable unless you've got the whole world voting on every product. They were saying, yes, you could have a supplementary income without having a special currency or without having a special marketplace, because there's examples out there that is being done. That's what we were trying to do on this, because this is important. So we see the next part here is getting into the desirability for our pilot of these different features. But before we leave this, I just want to see, are we all on the same page with understanding that there's no compelling dependency from a physical perspective, from a physical feasibility perspective, that these different features are dependent on one another and you cannot do one without the other? Are we all on the same page on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've already concluded it's going to
Yeah.
be an enclosed marketplace.
Okay.
It needs to be physical and
Yes.
visual.
Okay. So the idea here is that we're going to be able to find pieces. So what's the desirability? So the first thing here, that to what degree is the special digital marketplace important for our pilot? And here we see that there's pretty much agreement, but not quite half. Half of you said it's less than 100% required for the pilot or important for the pilot. And I'll have to go in and look and see on the reasons why. We'll have to dig into that. But does anybody maybe that said it's not 100% required that we have a unique special digital marketplace for the pilot project? If any of you here on the call fall into the category that maybe it is possible to go and get Etsy and eBay and or some other digital marketplaces, such as the one that Dr. Mohammed referred to. Maybe that's one that we would be able to just plug into an existing marketplace out there, rather than having a special, unique one that we're setting up. So does somebody who did not say yet, no, I 100% agree that this is important to have a special digital marketplace in the pilot, want to make a comment, please?
I think you need to simplify that answer. Simplify the question. Just make it one question, because I think you shared more than
The
you
difficulty I
said.
had in answering these questions was I was answering them arbitrarily, just to get a sense of, okay, yes, I understand what the SIFA plan is. Yes, these are not interdependent, and yes, these are desired. But it's a discussion later and what it is that we're trying to achieve that will make these questions more relevant.
Well,
And
yes.
so,
Well, I think the key thing we're trying to get out of this is, let's say everybody had been on the 100% agreement here. We can say, fine, we having our own special marketplace is key to the pilot. But right now, we just saw with the comment from Dr. Mohammed, and there's a couple of others that have said in some of the previous meetings that we've had, pointed out to similar systems that are out there that may be public in the public space that have no cost or are only covering their own costs. What if we do see, oh, there's 4 or 5 systems here that would accomplish what we're trying to accomplish with that, and there's a way to control that it only applies to sustainable products and services, that's covered, and it's covered that we would be able to control on the currency. If we find that this is where we get into the thing, does it have to be ours? In other words, do we have this not invented here syndrome that if we don't make it, then we can't use it? And I don't, that was part of what this was trying to get at, was how desirable is it that we have to have our own special digital marketplace?
I think that more relevant is the question is, once we get into this, and it's a good question, by the way, I believe always on capacity building as opposed to reinventing, first of all. So we haven't looked at what's out there. And I don't think that whomever suggests one way or another, what we need to do is actually look at the different systems that are there. What are the advantages and disadvantages, and how can we plug in or not plug in? That's more what I think needs to happen, so that we all have an understanding of what's out there, and then say, okay, this one fits what we're trying to achieve. Maybe we can work with them to do something that is branded as a SIFA plan sort of thing, and we're working with them.
Especially if they're working towards the same goals that we are.
Right.
Where we can join forces rather than saying, oh no, it's not our own.
Right. And the only other issue I have, and it's a big issue, is I'm not sure how autonomous is this group to make those decisions, because I feel like every time we go to the larger group, Lysinka doesn't like it. Just says, this is not the SIFA plan. This is not this. And
we've already agreed. We've already agreed that what we have described here, that we started talking about in her definition, is not the SIFA plan, but we've decided that's okay. It's in the direction.
But is she going to accept that? That's the question.
Well, I think so. I think she's
okay.
indicated.
Okay, we don't need to discuss it. I just don't want to work on
Yeah.
something that is just going to be kiboshed.
No. She's indicated here she wants to have something move forward, and she's tasked us with coming up with the recommendations on that. Okay, so let's go, because we have to go more quickly. Do we believe a special global currency is important for a pilot? That, in other words, we can't do this as a pilot with any existing currencies, that we've got to have our own special global currency. And what we've heard from Dr. Mohammed, there's a currency out there, and Yvonne has a lot of experience with various currencies. So the idea here was, I think this is really important, because almost everybody said, no, we got to have our own global currency, but that we've already realized that that's one of the toughest pieces of a pilot that we're looking to do, maybe in different local geographies, to be able to say, how are we going to establish a global currency and manage a global currency during this kind of a phase? So again, I'm just going to go through. This is what the responses are, and it tells us where we've got to dig in further because we have to get a better understanding. And then, to what degree do we believe the sociocratic decision-making bureaucracy is important for approving products and services? And it's interesting again that the majority have said, by far majority, has said, yes, we have to have that sociocratic bureaucracy, that is crucial to our pilot. And I think,
But I think we've concluded that we have consensus here, right? That there are questions that will define and design that, and then there's the process of when there are issues, there's an arbitration
no,
committee.
yes, no, we've discussed here alternatives, but this is where the question in the survey was, would it be desirable to have that humongous bureaucracy that has, I don't remember how many millions of decision steps that are needed for every decision. So this was only a question
And what
asking.
was the conclusion? And what was the conclusion?
Yeah, so the conclusion is here we need to find out, are these people saying, hey, screw the economy, the economic part, let's drop the marketplace and let's drop that and let's just go and do only governance. That might be where they're coming from.
Okay, that's where they are, but that's not what we're talking about.
Oh, but
we're creating a marketplace.
But keep in mind, our survey is asking them what they think. And we have to go and accept, okay, that's what they're thinking right now, but we have to understand why, and do they understand the implications? And maybe their answer is, yes, I'm only interested in the governance aspect, in which case we might say, okay, well, I'm sorry, but we had to go and cut that piece out of our pilot because that's not feasible for what we're talking about here. That's okay.
We could support them. I'm a big believer in bringing ideas together,
Yeah.
and maybe they have a strong governance experience, and they could and their knowledge and ability can be incorporated into this
Exactly.
plan.
And this is what Joan pointed out when she said, we have to take our time at these parts where we're at now, as long as we're making progress and we're not rehashing the same things over and over every week. So this here tells us these are places where we have to drill in and find out why people are saying what they're saying, and then be able to deal with that. The next question was, do you believe that some kind of a supplementary income for all is important for the success of a pilot? That we have to be able to have that universal basic income type of a component. And again, you can see it's the overwhelming majority is saying, yes, that is crucial to our pilot to be able to have a supplementary income or universal basic income component to the pilot. So I think this is one of the most clearest ones that are being stated. And again, today we're only getting, this is what people are saying. In our next meeting, hopefully we're going to drill into these, find out why, and be able to go and come up with conclusions where we've gotten the consensus out of the various, because we see some of the answers today are crossing the map. We've got to understand and try to reach consensus on these points so that we have a list of this is what we're going to do. And it means some things are not going to be in that part of the list that go forward. And some pieces, as Yvonne has pointed out, that we might have more detailed descriptions of how we could do those different pieces. And then the last piece here is, to what degree is the fact of the supplementary income being self-financing important for the success of the pilot? And again, the majority here are saying that this is very important for the success of the pilot. A couple of people saying no, but the majority are saying yes. So that's very important to note, because I know Lasinka, for one, does not believe the self-financing part is doable on less than a world scale. And so we've got to be able to say, okay, how would that work if we're doing individual pilots in different regions of the world, how would the self-financing supplementary income, or how would the supplementary income at all be doable in that kind of a situation? So, and then there's other features that people have said, oh, this should be taken into consideration. That we are over our time limit, so these I will share all of this with everybody, and we'll come up with a modified survey based on the answers from this survey, to drill in to try to find where people are thinking of. And those people who have watched our discussion today, our meeting today, this might result in them saying, oh, I didn't think of that particular question that way. And with what was being discussed here, I now think of it like that. But our goal here is that over these next couple of weeks, that we need to come to a consensus of this is what we are going to do in this pilot, because otherwise we can't move on to actually having something that is implementable. Joan, please.
Yeah, so in lieu of time, so I think the next steps that I'd like to suggest is that we formalize the committee.
Yes.
So we have our list of who is going to be on the committee. That's not to say we don't send information to everybody else. Obviously, we do, or we present at the strategic monthly meetings. I think that would be a good idea. The second thing is, if you could go up to the components of the SIFA plan at the very beginning. So, by the way, congratulations for doing this survey. I think it's a good thing just to have a high level feedback of what the group thinks, because that's, at the end of the day, we have to take what everybody thinks, right? We believe in democracy after all. There was the components of the plan. It was on here that you had it, right?
Yeah, it's here.
Yeah, there. So the 5 components, could we take this section and make a chart, and we discuss each of those components after we establish a committee, each of those, in detail. So let's say for the next 4 meetings or something like that, just so that there is an actual understanding of what is our understanding, what's doable, how are we going to do it? You got each of these ones. Is that possible, or is that too cumbersome?
I think maybe through the plan, the SIFA plan group here over the next couple of days, if people could put their thoughts in on how we would be able to discuss. I will post these 5 points on there and ask everybody to say, okay, we want to discuss how these could or would work. But I think here you're correct that we have to really understand that we all have the same understanding of what's behind those words. So we've got a sentence here that says this. Are we all envisioning the same thing, or are different people envisioning different things at that point? And one thing that's important, especially to what Yvonne was saying, was that we've got this plan in our minds that brings where these pieces are working together, that they're interrelated somehow, and yet when we look at the pilot and we sort of say, well, how would we do that particular piece, or how would we do this particular piece? That I think that's what Joan, what you're calling for. But we have to be able to figure out how we do that without saying, well, I'm able to say we can do this piece that way because I'm assuming this other piece over there that we're not discussing today, that it's going to work that way. And that makes what I'm envisioning for this piece to work a certain way. It's a little complicated. But I think the idea here is, I think the discussions that we've had today are important. And I think we need to now, we've gotten some feedback. Hopefully I'm seeing the number of responses is going up. When we started off, it was, I think, 16, we're up at 20. So people out there are continuing to respond to this. and now we've got to take the responses that came into this and put them back out to everybody. The committee is going to be a smaller group, but we still want to get the input from as big a group as we
Yeah.
can. But we've got to get out to them and say, okay, here's what you said, and we're trying to understand why. So here's a couple of questions that will help us understand why you responded the way that you responded, so that we can move on to the next point. And I think one of the things that's very important, and I want to make sure Yvonne doesn't get too frustrated with us, because Yvonne Yvonne and I have talked, and she's got some of the best ideas on how actually things could work and be done. But I think it's really important that we bring the group along, the committee along, to come to these conclusions that we can present to everybody else. This is why we're looking to do these particular features in the pilot, and why we're leaving some out.
Yeah. So Bill, if I could just ask, like, how often are we going to have somebody having input into this survey? Like, is there a timeline where we say, okay, we've collected this many, and like, so that we're not like somebody else, put this in there. Like, there has to be some timeline where we start to make a plan.
Yeah, it's if we look here at, let's take a look at the way UN committees work. So UN committees work, there's ideas put forward, and people say, hey, this is my position and what I think about that. And then there are pauses where groups get together and try to say that, where do we have consensus? So I'm envisioning here that maybe we'll give it another couple of days with this survey,
Okay.
and then about Wednesday we'll take this survey and we'll take it out to a new survey that's going to take us down to another level on these points, and that's going to give us the basis for what we'll be discussing next week. And then we'll do the same thing. I don't know if we can do it in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that we get down to where we're at that point where we're looking at each of the components and saying, okay, this is how we're envisioning it would work for the pilot.
So, sorry guys, I just have to ask these questions because I'm fussy about processes, and they're taking too long. So we're going to formalize a committee. We have to define what the goal is of the committee.
Yes.
So we have to agree on that, and and the timeline, so that people understand we're structured. We're not going to be here forever, and how frequent do we meet, and for how long. So that's the committee side of it. Right? So that people understand this is the commitment.
Yeah.
And here's how we're going to have surveys for this period. We'll discuss it, come up with a plan, bring it to the strategy meeting, like, so people understand exactly what's going to happen. Like, we're not making the decisions, we're just doing the processes, but we're always moving it along to the next step.
Yep. I think that's the important part, because if we look back over the last several years, we've had a lot of meetings and there's interesting discussion, but we've got to be able to show that we've moved forward, that we're closer to some result than we were last week. Because
I just want to say that no one is going to disagree with transparency.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to agree to that. Everybody's going to agree that there should be an income for all. The question is, how do you do that?
Right.
What's possible?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And especially when we look here at our pilot, what's the purpose of the pilot? What do we intend for that pilot to accomplish? Is the pilot to accomplish that certain areas, they're getting all the ultimate benefits of the final system, or is it a process to show that certain of the concepts of the system are feasible, they're doable, and to set the stage for maybe a second level, because there are certain pieces we were not able to include in that initial pilot for one reason or another, because we didn't have the backing of this group or that group that are necessary for the implementation of certain features.
Yeah. Okay. I just don't want to be surveyed out. That's all. I want to be planning. So, okay, that's great.
Anyone have any final comments? And otherwise I'll bring this meeting to an end.
And when do we meet next?
I would suggest next Monday, if we can go and say look at it by the end of Wednesday to be able to come up with the information for the next round. And as we build a committee and we create our separate work group, we have one called Platform out there. Maybe we take that, rename it, whatever, and get our committee place there. One of the things we have to realize with all committee members, if you've got better ideas on how we can go through this process of achieving our specifications for the pilot, achieving the recruiting, the trial areas or the pilot areas or whatever, or just here, oh, let's stop it with enough surveys already, right? Type of thing. It's all of us. We're a committee. We're not some kind of a hierarchical one or two people dictating, hey, this is where we're going to go. And the only way we can go not be that is for everybody to participate in the suggestions for how we move the committee forward to actually get to what we're looking to implement.
So, one, I agree with you 100%. And I think what we need to do, what would be great if everybody's in agreement, we create that timeline. We say by X date, this will happen.
Yeah.
And then we work backwards. I have a format. I'm taking a course from a leadership team program, and we could use that template and just fill it in and then set up the dates of benchmarks, accomplishments, and then smaller tasks that or benchmarks to get to the main benchmark. Yeah. So every 3 months, every month, X items will take place. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we could use that, and then everybody could take a look at that, and then there'll be easier for everyone to contribute and put in their opinion and their vision. Because just like for today, Mohammed brought a really brilliant perspective that we wouldn't have known about. And the others who have strong governance backgrounds, or others who have backgrounds in economy and other areas. So I guess if in addition to creating some kind of committee who will work, can we put together the timeline and the benchmarks?
I would only
caution and defining the goal.
Yeah, the goal.
Yes, that's the whole thing.
Right. But I think one of the things, be very cautious on one thing, and that is, let's use an analogy of building a house. And we say, okay, we want to be moved in by a certain date, but we don't know what the house is going to look like yet. And therefore we are not able to get estimates on how long it will take to actually build the house. So there are some things you can do where you say, okay, here's the end date, and there are certain things that you can go and solidify certain milestones where you then reevaluate what the end date could be. So until you have the specifications or the blueprints, you can't say how long it's going to take to build a house.
Well, everything in life is not perfect. So in this particular program, you live in the possibility that the idea has been completed by X day. So let's say we make this up in 3 months. Okay. Yeah. In 3 months, what will be accomplished? Mm-hmm. And then we just reverse engineer it, and then we are at task. But because I think already you've worked out all these little nuances.
Yeah. And one thing that's important here is, if you've got a plan, you can always modify it. But if you don't have a plan, you have no idea where you're at.
Yeah, but you shouldn't be modifying the goal, like the final goal.
That's correct. The goal needs to stay, but the path of how we get there,
that's right,
will modify itself as we learn more along the way. But at least we start off with saying, hey, here's a plan. And if something new comes up that we say, hey, it makes sense to modify the plan,
right,
and we can agree to modify the plan. But I don't remember who the person says is, what is it? failure to plan is planning to
Plan
fail,
to fail.
right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we want to make sure that we do have a plan. So,
Yeah.
okay. But
I personally really want to know what it is, the goal that we're working toward, because then it will then give you
yeah.
the arms
And-
to say, okay, this,
And I think this is going to be a challenge, and here maybe some of you, once we got our WhatsApp group out there, we need to have a discussion. How do we come up with that? Because we're talking about the goal for the pilot initially, right? So that might be more difficult to define than we think. I don't know until we put all the stuff on the table, how easy or difficult it will be to just be able to have agreement. Hey, this is what we want to test. As I said, we got those people that might be saying, look, the most important feature of this whole thing is the governance model. And
Okay, but we have to
saying,
move. Again, let's be positive.
Yeah.
Let's be proactive. The fact is, we need a marketplace.
Yeah.
Okay, boom.
Yeah. Oh, well,
Okay.
wait a minute.
So,
wait a minute. That's what I'm saying. Maybe we have some people out there that I believe are saying, no, we don't need a marketplace. Why? We just need to have a governance. We just want to go and have a way to have better governance in the world.
okay, so let them work on the governance aspect.
Yeah,
Right now,
exactly.
we've already
Go on another committee.
But
Yeah.
we got to get that clarified so that they're not in every discussion that we have saying, well, wait a minute, you're putting too much emphasis on the economy. We got to get that clarity out there that no, wait a minute, we've said we're going to be based on a marketplace and so forth in the pilot. And then once we do that, those people who are not interested in that, they should not be coming and discussing in every meeting, because what they're discussing is just sidetracking us, if you would, at that point. So this is why
What should happen is that there's a committee for governance, and then we can work together to make sure we're incorporating it into.
Yes,
that's the way I see it happening.
Yeah, that could be a very good thing.
Yes, I'm in it. That's but I'll share in the group a screenshot of what this SIFA, I mean the template looks like.
And I will try to get out as quickly as possible now the recording of today's meeting. But I thank you all. I apologize here. It's 11:30, I see. And I had promised some of you and my wife here we would try to stick as close to possible to an hour. But I think here I feel we've accomplished a fair amount. And I think here that we'll be able to now move forward for the next week to actually take another step, getting us closer to refining the goals, refining our process that we're going to be going through. That at least is my hopes. So I thank everyone. And Yvonne,
thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mohammed.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And before you hang up, there's the white paper that he added. I think it's mostly on discussion about cryptocurrency and creating, creating the opportunity for everyone to exchange. But we could be in the right direction. But there is no contact information there, and it doesn't say what the platform is. And hopefully.
I will be posting some information here to see how we can use artificial intelligence to help us gather information on tools like this. And if you haven't used Notebook LM from Google, it's free. I encourage you, go take a look at this, because I think we can use this to help us summarize lots of information, especially if we go out and find things that work, to have it summarize what works and why, and help us move some items forward quicker. So again, I will say thank you to all, and we keep watching the group. Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.